Grown Black Folks Talk of baseball men and what we can learn from the world of sports. Now, this is a reaction of sorts to a wonderful video that Mocha Mami has done about the reaction to her video about Derek Jeter, about whom there's been a docudrama created called The Captain for the time that he was captain of the Yankees. And she mentioned that people commented, what does this have to do with black women? Mokomami does content that will really help you level up your life as a black woman. And if you're interested in finding out where the men are that you say you want, Mokomami has a lot of good information. And in 10 minutes, gave a tremendous amount of useful information about the relationship between sports and men who are family men and men who are successful in the world economically and what this connection is. And I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm just going to put it in the description so that you can listen to it. It is worth your time. If you are looking for a different caliber of man, this will change life. The thing that she mentioned about this was now I happen to live in a city that has two championship sports teams. The Giants in baseball were champions not that long ago. And I think probably y'all know about the Warriors. Basketball. And basketball season is coming up. She gives you a lot of techniques about how do you meet the men who travel across the country, who can afford those high paying tickets, but she's going to cover that. That's not what I came to talk about. I came to say how wonderful the video was and to recommend it and to bring you some other sidelights specifically about baseball, which is often overlooked. Now, I mentioned in my last video, the spirit of competition is not from God. Football is a game of scarcity mindset. You're going to sit up here and literally beat people back and forth for 60 minutes over yards and inches on a field that is only 300 yards plus the end zone. So 320 yards, feet, 120 yards because the end zone. And you're going to spend all this time trying to ground people back and forth over a line. It's basically tank warfare with human players. It is brutal, it is violent, it is of the scarcity mindset. Baseball is a game of abundance. There are very few areas on a there are very few places on a baseball field where you cannot find a way to score from. And baseball is nonviolent. Baseball also requires an advanced mind. So when Mocha Mama is out here telling you about the importance of baseball, pay attention if you want a peaceful, profitable man who knows and values collaboration. Let me tell you why. The origin story of baseball is often told in this way. The founder of baseball was a Civil War veteran. Now you have to consider what this man has seen. You have to consider what this man had go through. If he invents a game having seen between 750,000 and a million people killed horrifically in 4 years, the year is supposed to be 1868. It makes sense that baseball is called the gentleman's game because baseball is the least violent game imaginable. You win or lose that game. Yes, there's competition, but you win but there's plenty of room and you win and lose that game based on how well you collaborate with your fellow players. Confrontations, physical having to do physical violence to other people is rare. Although, for those who know baseball, running those baselines and trying to get that person who is throwing the ball at the next person to get you out sometimes does require physical contact. Sometimes the pitcher has to seal off the plate to prevent someone from getting there and scoring. But even then, the way the ball moves around while your team is uh, pitching has nothing to do with you hitting any of the other players. That bat is used to hit the ball. And who can be more successful getting that ball into any number of positions that will allow men to run around the base paths right back to where they started and be able, and how well can they defend by coordinating with one another? So you hit a fly ball or you hit a ball that bounces a couple times, fly ball, you're immediately out. If someone can immediately catch it, you're out. Okay, so outfielder or infielder catches the ball. Everything depends on whether he can throw the ball not at you, but at his man who can get to the right position to get you out. If you're at the plate, you have a couple things that you can do. Would it be most glorious to hit a home run? Yes. You have all this area on this massive field to get that home run, even out of the field or an inside the field home run. Both of those can happen. The variations are endless. You can hit it to center, you can hit it to right, you can hit it to left, and there are certain places that you can't hit it because your opponent cannot catch it. Those are generally called foul balls. But anywhere in the field of play, you have all this space. Football is about 320 yards. Baseball fields are like 12, like 400 feet this way and 320 feet, 120 yards. Baseball fields have that kind of direction in every direction you can hit a ball in any of these angles. It's abundant. There's plenty of room. But you may not always be able to do that. Sometimes what you need to do is hit a ball inside the field in such a way that it gets a hop so that you can advance the runner who's ahead of you. Sometimes you do what's called a sacrifice. You do what's called a bunt because they roll down one of those lines and people are running around trying to catch it. And they're not always good, probably gonna get you out, but they're gonna advance the person ahead of you. So you do a sacrifice to advance the person ahead of you into scoring position. Sometimes all you need to hit is a double. Okay, you didn't get to go to home plate on this trip, but you cleared the bases. The three men who were on the base ahead of you have now scored 3 points. Baseball is about collaboration. Baseball is about how well can you coordinate, how willing are you to sacrifice to make sure that your team meets its objectives. It is a non-violent game started by a veteran who was sick and tired of violence. Abner Doubleday, I believe. Abner or Homer Doubleday, I believe, is often credited. I think it is Abner, who is credited as the inventor of baseball, the most nonviolent, the most collaborative game. Now, I said in my previous video, God created a collaborative universe, not a competitive universe. Competition didn't come in until Satan decided to be God and tried to get man to join him in his rebellion. Genesis 3. Okay? So the people that watch baseball are different people than the ones who watch football. And I'm not saying this absolutely because there's some men that follow their teams all year. But the mind that can appreciate baseball in its entirety is a completely different mind of a man that can appreciate football. Is basketball is oftentimes about people loving to watch other men stunt on other men. Although basketball too is abundant, not so much as baseball, and basketball too is about collaboration. But people tend to watch it to watch one star not only dominate the competition but his own team. So even there, basketball is more a game of the ego. So people live vicariously in different ways through different games. Football is what you do if you like to watch war games, if you want to watch Gladiator. And the types of people that gravitate to certain things value different things. Baseball is still a family game. Still, baseball is a game for people that are not too much in a hurry. You're going to put in 9 innings, at least 3 hours. I don't think I've ever seen a baseball game be under 3 hours, maybe more. It's a much slower pace. You can sit and have conversation while they're changing the field, while different people are moving on and off. You can sit around and have conversation between batters, really. Baseball is going to produce a different mindset. So these are things that we don't always think about because as women, we sometimes as men spend way too much time on sports. Do you know that sports is an outlet for men that is team play? An outlet for men that may not have had an opportunity if they didn't have their father, maybe they had that coach. You know how many coaches took boys that did not have their fathers and taught them how to be men and taught them how to have healthy male peers and taught them how to work together as men. And that's the only environment in which they had that. As much as we as women tend to look down on sports, do you know that if you do not have a strong military, you know that sports is your last line, probably? And of course, not all boys are going to be athletes. This is not to say that people who are involved in baseball are better than those in basketball or better than those in football. I'm just saying. One of the other origin stories about baseball is that Mr. Doubleday got the idea from watching a retreat A retreat is the only time in the middle of a battle, although it's not the position that you want to be in, that you have stopped thinking about killing someone else and about your team and how to get your team out alive. It is the only nonviolent pursuit in all of wartime. It's not the one you want. It's not the one that makes you glorious. In fact, it's going to cost you a great deal because you got defeated and then you retreated and everybody's going to be calling you weak because you lost. But a good retreat gives you a chance to fight another one today. Certain retreats in the Civil War is why it came out the way it did. You have to know when you beat and go back and start over. If Hooker does not have sense enough to retreat in 63, and Meade did not have sense enough to retreat in 64, Grant doesn't have time. Well, actually, both of them, 63 and Meade in late 63, Grant does not have time to come through in 64 and win the war in 65. Doesn't happen. How to retreat? It's the one nonviolent thing you do to preserve your resources in a war. So if you consider baseball as a game by someone watching in a war, a situation where you went from killing people to getting them around a particular situation, the way that the city of Petersburg was evacuated, presumably is what gave him the idea. Presumably it was a 4-step diamond retreat, presumably. There's a lot of things that as Black women, if you are serious about being in a higher circle, there's a lot of things we need to learn. We need to be able to look at all things in a different way. You want to be with a kind man who knows how to work in collaboration and not competition. You have to look at what men like that are looking at, where they may be. It won't be where they are as women, be where we would like to be as women, thinking about how to do collaboration. Why? Because men are not women. You have to be willing to open your mind and to understand the world from a good man's perspective. Now, the other thing Mokumami mentioned, and I was very glad to hear it, was that I forgot that there was a charity circuit. I qualify. I told y'all when I did the video about just did the video, and that's gonna be on Saturday evening about what it is ownership perspective. Well, I'm in ownership position on 3 very important nonprofits in the city of San Francisco, which means it would be ideal for me to find, if I want a man who is involved in community service on a very high level that I'm actually at, I may not be able to meet him in the San Francisco Black church circuit. I just may not. There's not very many my age that seem to be involved in this that I have seen. I may not be able to meet that, but I may be able to meet my counterpart on the charity circuit in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I want to publicly thank Mogul Mommy for both letting me know why I should buy a ticket to some good seats at Pac Bell Park. Go Giants! Maybe when COVID calms down a little more, I might have to work my way over to the Chase Center. Go Warriors! I live when we have such fantastic teams. And then in the meantime, in between time, when COVID calms down a little more, I might get myself to some charity events and introduce myself for who I am, because I am eligible to walk in those circles. And if y'all see me investing in some high heels with some arch supports and get some pictures like that, you'll know what Miss Deanne is doing. Although right now, I am a very contented single. I have enough to do. It's just a hopeful sign to be able to listen to Mocha Mommy and know that the men that I am looking for, where they are, and that they're closer than I thought they were. And this is why when you take in new information, don't be so quick to ask, what does that have to do with me? Just listen. Just listen. Because if you want to go to new places, you're going to need new information that you don't have. And gentlemen, I'm always going to be fair. If you consider yourself exceptional, and if you consider yourself trying to do things that people are not doing, then you also need to take in new information. And this information is going to take you away from a lot of your peers. And that's okay. Because I talked about ownership and competition in the last 2 videos. We are not owned by our fellow Black people. The collective does not own us because human beings don't own other human beings. You are responsible to do what you were called to do. You are not responsible to have to be always in the presence of people that are competing with you for scraps. The spirit of competition that is eating up our community and competing for attention, competing for likes and shares and views, and mad and acting a straight fool because someone else has a bigger audience base and they can't have it and they can't have access because they showed their whole behind previously. You're not obligated to stay in that either. Get new information. One of the most important shows that you can actually get back and watch is the original Star Trek. Captain Kirk makes his failures and mistakes, trust. But one thing about it, and they have to learn how to work respectfully to new civilization, and sometimes they almost get their heads handed to them. Risk and reward. Risk and reward. In a relatively Deep Space Nine is good for this as well. Star Trek Deep Space Nine is good for this as well. Actually, the first three Star Trek series, period. You may not even like science fiction. What I want you to do is really begin to look at, or maybe if you don't want to do that, look at explorations of the world that were done not from the point of view of white men trying to conquer everything. Look at explorations of the world that people take as personal journeys, what it takes to do that. There's a video called Everest Complete, and it shows you the steps that people take because they are competing with basically their own weaknesses. You have to be willing to expand your horizons. And that means you have to take in information that is new and sometimes doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. But if you want to get to a place you've never been, you have to learn things you've never learned and take steps you've never taken. Don't be afraid of that. Embrace it. And then boldly go where no one like you around you may have gone before. All right. Y'all have a good day now. Goodbye.